The New York Knicks currently have one of the better constructed teams in the NBA, even despite all the injuries they are dealing with, and they are my favorites to make it out of the East. The trades to acquire OG Anunoby, Bojan Bogdanovic have given this team a big boost, as well as Jalen Brunson truly coming into his own as his number one option role. Knicks fans have hope for the first time in what feels like years. In fact, the last time they had anywhere near this much hope was about 14 years ago when at that year's deadline, they make a different splash trade. As a part of a three-team trade between them, the Denver Nuggets, and Minnesota Timberwolves, the New York Knicks bring in Carmelo Anthony to be the future of the franchise. They had to give up quite a lot in order to make the trade work, but if all goes according to plan, it would be totally worth it. To begin, let's talk about the Minnesota portion of this trade as they gave up the least while also getting back the least a part of this trade. From Denver, they would receive a 2015 second round pick that they would later trade to Portland for a guy whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, and who also never played a single game in the NBA. From New York, they would receive Eddie Curry, Anthony Randolph, and $3 million in cash. Eddie Curry was waived a few days later without playing a single minute for Minnesota, and Anthony Randolph lasted a season and a half and was a decent bench player during his time. Minnesota would give Denver Kostas Koufis in the deal, who would play about 2.5 years in Denver and was solid. Finally, they would give New York Corey Brewer, who was waived a few days later without having played a single minute for New York. The waiving of Corey Brewer could be seen as a little bit of a mistake for the Knicks, as he was a very, very solid player for the remainder of his career. But the fit with him in New York probably wouldn't be great because of the Knicks acquiring Melo a part of the trade. The Denver Nuggets got themselves a lot of value in this trade, which makes sense. The New York Knicks gave up Wilson Chandler, Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari, Timofey Mozgov, $3 million in cash, 2 second-round picks, a first in 2014, and the rights to swap picks in 2016. Wilson Chandler was a big piece in Denver for 6.5 years, starting in 248 of 336 games played, averaging 13 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Raymond Felton only lasted the remainder of the season due to his dissatisfaction coming off the bench, but in 21 games played for Denver, he averaged 11.5 points, 6.5 assists, and 3.5 rebounds. During the 2011 draft, Raymond Felton would be traded to Portland for Andre Miller and the 26th pick, both of which didn't do massive things for Denver. Danilo Gallinari was a cornerstone in Denver for 5 years. He started in 254 of 285 games he played for Denver. He would average 16 points, 4.8 rebounds, 2 assists. He was a very, very good player. He also was able to stretch the floor well, shooting 42% from field and 36.6% from three. Timofey Mozgov lasted 3.5 seasons in Denver before being traded to Cleveland for 2 first-round picks. But before the trade, he was a respectable sixth-man for Denver, even receiving votes for Sixth Man of the Year in 2013. The 2012 second they got was used to select Quincy Miller, who didn't do much during his 2 years in Denver. A 2013 second and the 2014 first were both traded as a part of a 4-team trade, which is too complicated for this video. And then in 2016, with the swap, they would use that to get to swap picks with the Knicks and select Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray has been a staple in Denver since being drafted, being a key piece to them winning their very first championship last season, and he fits very nicely being a second option behind Nikola Jokic. Needless to say, this trade was a massive win for Denver, giving them exactly what they needed to build a team in order to win the franchise's first championship. However, the Knicks made this trade as a kind of a win-now move, and as we all know, it didn't pan out for them. Even at the time of this trade, a lot of people were saying the Knicks overpaid in it, but looking back on it 14 years later, it wasn't just an overpay. The Knicks got straight up robbed in broad daylight. Apart from Carmelo Anthony, the Knicks received from Denver Ronaldo Balkman, Chauncey Billups, Sheldon Williams, and Anthony Carter, and a 2016 first-round pick. The 2016 first-round pick they used in a later trade to get Andrea Bargnani, who played decently well across 71 games and 2 seasons for New York, averaging 14 points and 5 rebounds. Everyone else, on the other hand, oh boy. Balkman played in 17 games across a season and a half. Chauncey Billups played in 21 games, played really well, but was gone after that season. Sheldon Williams, 17 games, gone after the season, didn't do anything. And then Anthony Carter played in 19 games, lasted the remainder of the season, and then was gone. The Knicks gave up so much in this. A lot of key pieces that became cornerstones in Denver. They got back jack fucking shit. I mean, it's embarrassing. But again, the trade was highlighted by Carmelo Anthony, so how did he do in the Big Apple? Well, across his 7-year tenure there, he averaged 24.7 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists, even earning himself a 5-year extension worth $128 million. But the results just weren't it for New York. They only made the playoffs in 3 years of the 7 years he spent there, that being in 2011, 12, and 13, and they only made it past the first round once, that being in 2013. His stats in the playoffs compared to the regular season were generally either slight increases or slight decreases in averages, but for the most part, kind of what you expected. It was the shooting efficiency that made me nearly rip my hair out. In 2011, he shot 43% from the field during the regular season. In the playoffs, it fell to 37.5%. In 2012, it went from 45% to 42%. In 2013, during the first round, it went from 45% to 38%. During the second round, it was 45% to 43%. Not terrible, but his three-point shooting, holy shit. In 2011, it was a very minor increase, but in 2012, it was a 15% drop. In 2013, during the first round, it was a 14% drop. In the second round, it was a 6% drop. Melo clearly needed some kind of help around him, but the amount he was making and his ego just didn't allow the Knicks to give him that help. The late 2000s and 2010s of the NBA is the Big Three era. You have Boston's Big Three with Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. You have the Heatles. Then you have LeBron, Kevin Love, and Kyrie in Cleveland, Clay, Steph, and Draymond in Golden State. Those are the main teams of this era. And Melo was out there alone in New York trying to do something. Many of it due to his own, his own problems. He caused a lot of these issues. But Melo never made it easy for the Knicks to get him the help he so desperately needed, which caused him to play hero ball in the playoffs, which caused the inefficient play. Look, Melo is going to be a Hall of Famer. There's no one denying that. And in my opinion, his jersey is going to be retired in New York. But his legacy could have been so much better if he put his ego aside and allowed the Knicks to truly build around him. Eventually, tensions grew beyond repair, where in 2017, he was traded to OKC for Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, and a second-round pick. That second-round pick did become Mitchell Robinson, who was a key piece today to the Knicks, but this trade was just a massive loss for the Knicks. But it did allow one of the most fun players in NBA history to have a bigger spotlight and to cement his legacy in a place that's 4 hours south of where he went to college at Syracuse and a 40-minute ride from his hometown of Brooklyn. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed watching and have yourselves a damn good one.